How does a man lose everything? His house, his savings, and 5,126 battles, only to end up worth over $10 billion. We like to think of inventors as geniuses who have a eureka moment in a bathtub, but for James Dyson, success wasn't a spark. It was a decade of grime, grease, and the smell of failure. In 1978, James was a frustrated designer in rural England. He had just bought the most powerful vacuum on the market, a top-of-the-line Hoover, and it was, quite frankly, terrible. It lost suction the moment it picked up a speck of dust. Most people would have just emptied the bag, but James wasn't most people. He noticed something. The bag was clogging. The very thing designed to hold the dirt was the thing killing the machine. This is the story of a man who decided to declare war on the vacuum bag, a war that would last 15 years and nearly destroy his family's life. He didn't just want to build a better vacuum, he wanted to reinvent how we move air. But between that vision and reality stood 5,127 failed prototypes. This is the brutal, obsessive, and ultimately triumphant history of Dyson. To understand the obsession, we have to understand the enemy, the vacuum bag. Since 1901, vacuum cleaners worked the same way. A fan sucked air into a porous bag. The air escaped, but the dirt stayed. The problem? As soon as a thin layer of dust coated the inside of that bag, it acted like a wall. The air couldn't get through. The suction dropped. The motor strained. It was a fundamentally broken system, but it was a billion-dollar industry. Companies like Hoover and Electrolux didn't want to fix it. Why would they? They made a fortune selling you the replacement bags. It was the perfect business model, planned obsolescence disguised as a household chore. James Dyson saw this as a moral failure of engineering. He had spent years working on a giant industrial cyclone for a factory that separated paint particles using centrifugal force. He wondered, could he shrink that cyclone down? Could he replace the bag with a spinning vortex of air that would never clog? It sounded simple on paper, but as James would soon find out, the laws of physics are far more stubborn than a corporate board of directors.
For the next 5 years, James Dyson lived in a shed, literally. While his peers were climbing the corporate ladder, he was covered in dust, tinkering with cardboard and duct tape. He wasn't just an inventor anymore, he was a gambler. He and his wife, Deirdre, were pushed to the absolute limit. They grew their own vegetables and made their own clothes. Every penny they had, and many pennies they didn't have, went into prototypes. James would build one, it would fail. He would tweak a curve, it would fail. He would change the motor angle, and it would fail. By prototype number 2000, he was drowning in debt. By prototype number 4000, he was a local eccentric. His friends thought he was losing his mind. But James had a unique philosophy. He didn't see these as failures, he saw them as data points. He famously said that you don't learn from success, you only learn from failure. But how many lessons can one family take before they lose their home? The bank was knocking, and number 5,126 had just sputtered and died.
1983. Prototype number 5,127. James flicked the switch. The sound was different. Instead of a labored whine, it was a clean, high-pitched whistle of air moving at incredible speeds. The dual cycle was born. It worked perfectly. It didn't lose suction. It captured dust particles that were invisible to the naked eye. It was arguably the greatest leap in domestic technology since the washing machine. James Dyson had done it. He had beaten the physical world. But now, he had to face something much scarier than physics: the business world. He took his invention to the big players, the giants of the industry. He expected them to be thrilled. He expected a bidding war. Instead, he was met with a deafening silence. They didn't want his machine. They told him it was too loud, too weird, and most importantly, it didn't use bags. They weren't just rejecting an invention. They were protecting their profits. They knew that if Dyson's machine succeeded, their bag business would die overnight. James was frozen out of his own industry. Broke and rejected in the UK, James turned his gaze east. Japan has always had a love affair with high-tech, quirky engineering. In 1986, a Japanese company licensed the technology to create the G-Force. It wasn't just a vacuum, it was a fashion statement. It was bright pink, it cost $2,000, and it became a status symbol in Tokyo penthouses. It even won prizes at international design fairs. Finally, James had proof of concept. He had money coming in, but he wasn't satisfied with being a licensor. He didn't want to just sell the idea, he wanted to build the brand. He took the royalties from the Japanese sales, every single cent, and made the biggest play of his life. He decided to open his own factory back in England. He was going to manufacture the machines himself and take on the giants on his own terms. No more begging for licenses. This was the birth of Dyson Limited. But to make it work, he had to convince the British public that a translucent, yellow, bagless vacuum was worth 3 times the price of a Hoover.
In 1993, the Dyson DC-01 hit the British market. The marketing was revolutionary because it was, well, honest. The tagline was simple: say goodbye to the bag. James did something no one else dared to do. He made the dust canister clear. His advisors told him it was a mistake, that people didn't want to see the dirt they were sucking up. James disagreed. He knew that seeing the vortex and seeing the dirt collect was the visual proof of performance. It was a psychological masterstroke. Within 18 months, the DC-01 became the best-selling vacuum cleaner in the United Kingdom. It didn't matter that it was expensive. It didn't matter that it looked like a sci-fi prop. It worked. The giants who had rejected him years earlier, Hoover, Electrolux, even Miele, watched in horror as their market share evaporated. They tried to sue him, they tried to copy him, but Dyson was 10 years ahead in research and development. The crazy man in the shed was now the king of the industry.
Dyson didn't stop at vacuums. James realized he hadn't just built a vacuum company, he had built an airflow company. If you can move air efficiently, you can do anything. Next came the hand dryers. You've seen them, the Airblade. Before Dyson, hand dryers were weak, warm air toys that didn't actually dry anything. Dyson used a thin sheet of unheated air moving at 400 miles per hour to literally scrape water off your skin. Then came the bladeless fans, the supersonic hair dryers, and the air purifiers. Each product followed the same DNA. Take an everyday object that is good enough, find its fundamental flaw, and solve it with high-end engineering. Today, Dyson employs thousands of engineers. They spend millions every week on research and development. They even tried to build an electric car, pouring £500 million into the project before James realized it wasn't commercially viable and shut it down. Even with billions in the bank, James Dyson is still willing to fail, as long as he learns something along the way.
So, what is the lesson of the 5,127 failures? Most people quit at attempt number 5. Some quit at 50. Very few make it to 500. James Dyson's legacy isn't really about the vacuum. It's about the discipline of failure. He proved that if you are willing to be wrong, to be poor, to be laughed at, and to be stubborn for long enough, you can eventually change the world. He turned a household chore into a feat of engineering and a multi-billion-dollar empire, all because he hated his vacuum bag. The next time you face a setback in your career or your life, remember the shed in England in 1978. Remember the cardboard and the duct tape. Most people see a wall and stop. James Dyson saw a wall and built 5,126 ways to climb it, until the last one finally worked. Because in the world of innovation, the only true failure is giving up. My name is your tech historian, and this was the story of how persistence sucked the oxygen out of the competition.
I hope this deep dive gave you a new perspective on the strategies and the relentless mindset behind these global icons. If you enjoy deconstructing business empires and tech legends in this tech archive style, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on all notifications. That way, you will never miss a new blueprint of history. For those of you ready to explore more boardroom coups and technological breakthroughs, I have handpicked 2 videos for you right here on the screen. Click one to keep watching. I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.